and welcome to a brand new episode of the Five Heart Podcast, brought to you by CoreNation.com, part of the SB Nation Podcast Network. I'm your host. My name is Greg Mahochko. Joining me, as always, he is our founder and fearless leader. And, I mean, we're just going to have to start calling him the Silver Fox, John Dam Johnston. What's up, John?
Chocolate rain. I don't know the rest of the words, but chocolate rain. You don't know that song?
I know Purple Rain.
You did. Oh my God! Wait, you guys are old.
Yeah.
You've never heard this song.
Chocolate Rain.
I think it was Ty Sunday. It was a big YouTube hit. Okay, let's move on already. God. You know, he would turn his head away from the mic, and then he wouldn't breathe into the mic. And okay, that just flew out there like a brick.
Well,
Maybe
let me tell you
Todd
a little bit about YouTube celebrities.
Todd could do this trick where he disappears into his background, and it's really creepy.
Like that Homer Simpson gif, right?
Yeah, it is actually, and it's terrifying because it's Little Red, and it's like he gets absorbed into Little Red. If he held his head exactly right, he could be like, I'm Little Red. My head's been transplanted on Little Red's body.
I think what he should do sometime as like a bonus clip for our viewers over on YouTube is, you know, have his back to the camera and then walk and kind of morph into Little Red.
Oh, yeah. That'd be kind of cool.
I suppose you don't know the song, the Ma Yahi Ma Yaha thing either. Okay, we should just go on. Oh, God. Ma Yahi Ma Yaha Ma Yaha.
Is that like one of the first like internet videos with the I'll put it gently, the rotund individual in glasses, that Numa thing where he goes,
Yeah.
I remember that from almost 20 years ago.
God. This one's falling flat. Let's go on to something else. Like, how you doing, Todd?
I'm doing real well. Thank you.
Glad to hear, Todd. So was I you guys are gonna have to forgive me. My mind is scattered and I wasn't on last week's show. Was your meetup in Minneapolis 2 weeks ago, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And everything went well?
Yeah.
We saw each other about an hour.
Yeah. we were kind of restricted to where we could both be. And, there were, John, when you counted the play, everybody that was on the field and the people in the stands and stuff, there were 200.
Yeah, 200, 250.
Yeah, that was all that was in there. And
I mean, I literally I posted photos on Facebook. Todd took a photo of me in US Bank Stadium. Literally, I'm a small dot in this enormous empty stadium. It's because I think I was the only non-team photographer there.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I think when you were up in the box, I mean, there was almost no press. There was, well, you can tell them who was up there.
Yeah, no, there were just three of us. Well, four of us up there. Now the radio guys were up above, so I'm not sure who was up there, but the Nebraska SID was there. One of the writers, Evan Bland for the Omaha World Herald, was there. And then some young man from Arizona that works for some scouting service was up there, and he was running cameras and doing a lot of that kind of stuff. So, but it was strange, but boy, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun watching baseball. And
of those 200 people, probably, I don't know, 25 to 30 of them had to be scouts at least.
There were quite a few scouts there.
There were a lot of scouts.
I wonder.
There were a lot of scouts very interested in Cade Povich.
I was wondering, Todd, in regards to the amount of press that were on, press row. Let's be frank, it's not that different from a normal Big Ten baseball game, because as we all know, baseball is just underrepresented in Big Ten sports media.
Yeah, I think you're probably right there. It's frustrating when you think about it because there was no one there from the University of Iowa,
Yeah.
and
they don't know how to drive that far north.
no, it's not. And so that was a little bit surprising. And I don't know, it's, I
Ohio
guess,
State Ohio State usually has a fair number of guys. I've been to I covering baseball now for a long time and been credentialed to it. And Nebraska, you could take all of the rest of the Big Ten media and add it up, and it wouldn't equal what Nebraska's usually doing for coverage.
yeah.
But normally, there's normally been a few guys there for Ohio State, and oh man, yeah, the Ohio State guys stand out. Maybe
I know
because
you guys talked quite a bit about that weekend on last week's show, so I encourage anybody to go back and listen to that. Now, after we had last week's recording, of course, with Todd and John, there was a little thing known as the NCAA Wrestling Championship, St. Louis, Missouri. And Todd, you're here as not just our baseball reporter, but our wrestling reporter as well. You got to put on a different hat.
Well, I'll keep the same hat that I have on, but last weekend was just great for me because there was a lot of coverage of the wrestling tournament, and then you had Nebraska playing the 3-game series against Iowa, and on BTN Plus. So I was in hog heaven. Nebraska ended up with 2 All-Americans down in St. Louis, and I think, for most people that follow Nebraska wrestling, I think that's a disappointment. I think that the expectations were significantly higher. The team finished in 12th place, and going into that tournament, I think that a lot of people believed that they would be contending for one of the 4 trophies, and they just didn't. And I kind of reflected a little bit on it. This team was primed a year ago. I truly do believe if they'd wrestled that national tournament a year ago up in Minneapolis, Nebraska would have placed in the top 4. They just seemed to be peaking at the right time. They did not wrestle well overall down in St. Louis. Now, Mikey Labriola at 174, he ended up as an All-American, placing 3rd. I thought he wrestled outstanding. He had a very good tournament, and he was, just moments away from, getting into the finals. And then Chad Red battled back and ended up as an All-American for the 4th.
What's it mean to be an All-American in wrestling?
You got to place
top 6.
Top 8.
What's that?
Top 8. 1st through 8th place is All-American. Okay. Yeah.
All right. I did not know that.
But, the rest of the team, just did not perform. And, I had hopes the way the tournament was kind of unfolding. I had hopes that Taylor Venz was going to get in there, and because he wrestled a really good match against the Brooks kid from Penn State, who ended up being a national champion. But then he just faded. And, Schultz at 197. I think after he got upset, in the first round, he got upset. The number 2 seed. He won a match in consolations. He might have won 2 in consolations, but I just don't think his head was in it. So it's too bad. Hopefully, there were some lessons learned. There's some good guys coming back. I haven't heard about the seniors, if they're planning on, taking advantage of this opportunity and wrestling another year yet. But hopefully, like I said, there's a learning experience and they come back tough next year.
A couple questions. One of them being, I know that the Big Ten is a wrestling powerhouse, much like they are, honestly, men's basketball, volleyball. But there's something about wrestling that, and maybe it's just the individual nature of the contest, but there's so much parity. It doesn't matter if you're Nebraska, Penn State, Iowa, or Valdosta, random. I don't even know if they have wrestling, but it's going to be, you could be 0-5 against the guy and then meet him at the right time and flip the script on him. So, so that's one thing. The other, and I'm glad you mentioned Taylor Venz, because that's a name that I remember, I don't, Chad read two, but Taylor Benz is one. I feel like he was a senior, correct?
Yeah.
So it, like you said, it'd be interesting to see who takes advantage of this, extra year. But at the same time, it's unless you're the elite, the Jordan Burroughs, of your weight class, and you're looking for. I mean, there's not a whole lot of opportunity out there for collegiate wrestlers. I mean, they can go pro. We all know what that means, and that's not quite, But then there's trying for world championships, Olympics, or I mean, I guess there have been a number of wrestlers who've gone on to some type of success in UFC. So I mean, I feel like there's a few avenues, but it's not, and I guess we look at that as, that might seem like they have a lot of avenues when you look at, a college football player who has the NFL, the CFL, or had the XFL, for a hiccup. So, I mean, I don't know. This doesn't seem like there's as much awareness for, and I think this is probably, problematic sport wide. There's just not a whole lot of awareness for wrestling.
No, I would agree with you. And, unless some of those guys, just have these unmet goals and are incredibly driven, I would, or if they have aspirations of wrestling, if they still have aspirations of competing internationally, Olympics, world championships, and that kind of stuff. I think that there's probably, quite a few of them that will just say, you know what, I've given it my best. I'm done. It's time to move on with life. A couple of Oklahoma State have said that they're going to do that. But I just want to mention a couple other things, and we can move on from this wrestling tournament. I know that there's a lot of people that always say, stick to sports, and they don't want social commentary. They get upset with athletes getting involved, and some of that kind of stuff. But there's a couple of things I just want to mention that came from this tournament. The
Todd,
first
are you
one,
getting political on us?
I'm not going to get political.
Okay.
The first one is that Stanford, when the whole COVID thing kind of started blowing up, Stanford announced that they're going to cut 11 sports. Stanford, which has endowments up the yin-yang. If there's any college in the United States of America that can subsidize sports, it's Stanford. Now, they offer more sports than probably any other university in the country, but 34. They announced that they're going to cut 11. Well, the wrestling community out there, they kind of took the bull by the horns, and they have raised $12.4 million to keep wrestling going at Stanford, to endow the coaching positions, etc. And
so
Stanford,
scholarships as well, I'm sure.
Yeah, and exactly. And Stanford has said, no, we're not gonna add it back. Now, here's the kicker: Stanford qualified, I think, like 7 guys for the NCAA tournament. It's not like it was a bad sport for Stanford. I mean, they were a school on the rise. Stanford had a national champion at 167 pounds or 165 pounds, a national champion. And what was really interesting is, Stanford, their colors are that dark red and white. The wrestlers all wore solid black singlets, solid black warm-ups to protest, the dropping of the sport.
Good.
And when that kid won his national championship at 165 pounds, everybody in the arena stood up and applauded, and he kind of stood at the center of the mat, but they were applauding, his effort under very difficult circumstances. This cop-out that major universities are using, whether they're blaming it on COVID, whether they're blaming it on Title IX, or whatever their excuses are for dropping minor sports, it just sickens me. And I hope that some brighter people can figure this out, particularly at Stanford with their wrestling program. The other thing that I would want to tell you is that in college wrestling, there's 10 weight classes. This year, of the 10 national champions, 5 were African Americans, which is the highest number of African Americans to win a national title in the same year. And of those 5 African Americans, I think 4 of the 5 are, maybe 3 of the 5 are either a freshman or a sophomore. So one of them is that baddest man on earth that wrestles at 285 from
Minnesota.
Gable Stevenson. But that's something too, with all the attention on the social aspects of what's been going on in this country, that mark was made at this tournament. So anyway,
You think? We talked about a lack of media representation for Big Ten baseball and a lack of spotlight on NCAA wrestling. I know Big Ten Network, because of the popularity of the sport within the conference, they had a lot of coverage from the conference tournament, and then ESPN. Maybe and I don't say this disparagingly, but I think in a regular year, I don't know if they show national championship on ESPN. Do they, Todd?
Well, they do, but not as much as they did this year. I mean, ESPN's gotten progressively better at showing this tournament. But I'll tell you what, BTN does it better. They do an excellent job with the production of that tournament. And but I remember the first time that the national finals were covered live. I was in the arena, and the public address announcer, he was giving the crowd cues before they went on the air, and he said, "We're about 30 seconds from airtime. I'm going to count you down, and when I get to 0, I want you to blow the roof off this place. Cheer like you've never cheered before." And I mean, it was kind of hokey and staged, but
that's not exclusive. A year, well, I guess just over a year ago, before the XFL shut down operations, I took my son, my oldest, but at the time he was my only. We went to the season opener of the St. Louis Battlehawks, and they got 50,000 people, something like that, in the old Edward Jones Dome. Now it's the Dome at America Center or whatever. It's where the Rams used to play, so it was as good of a fit as possible. But it's like for them it was, St. Louis. I'll be honest, we were on the concourse, and there was loud chanting for Kroenke sucks. So it was more like, hey, show the world that St. Louis is a vibrant, full of life football town, and by extension a middle finger to Stan Kroenke, who pissed away that opportunity. So. Yeah. So that was, like, we're going live in 5, 4, 3, go crazy, folks. That kind of stuff. So yeah. But one final thing, it would have been, especially with all of the social justice representation, things like that. Have you seen? Because I'm sure you follow, the headlines and things like that more close. Has there been any coverage just on the fact that it was more African American wrestlers this year winning national championships than any other year previously? Was there any type of discussion about that, and how I think maybe traditionally wrestling is a middle America meathead type of sport, and it's like all walks of life, or was there any type of engagement from that perspective that of, Todd?
One of the primary websites, USA Wrestling, had a good article there, but no, it wasn't. It's kind of interesting. There's never been really a whole lot of conversation about it. It is what it is, and I think the thing about wrestling that wrestling folks focus on more than anything else is that it's for the little guy, it's for the big guy, it's for the one, you don't, it's for anybody. I mean, anybody,
Right. Everybody in between, yeah.
yeah, can go out there and, with.
It's for all the guys who can't play basketball. Honest to God, what it is.
Well,
It's
yeah,
because all these hometowns across middle America have their basketball teams, and then they have this other set of people who, like me, who have no coordination whatsoever, and they go, "You need a sport? Here's wrestling." Unlike my high school, which didn't have wrestling because the fuckers thought it ruined basketball because they're a bunch of wieners. They, I'm not that I'm resentful after 40 years, but I mean, that's wrestling, isn't it?
Yeah, well, to a large extent, in some areas, it truly is because it's the alternative.
Yeah.
Now, in other parts of the country, no, it's pretty hot, and they'll recruit kids and get them going, at a young age. But I can tell you that one of the better teams I ever coached, one year, these kids, I got 5 kids out of the same class that all ended up being state qualifiers by the time they graduated from high school, that played basketball in 8th grade. Now they wrestled in 8th grade too, but they were on a basketball team in 8th grade. And what they all looked at was that the class in front of them also had some very, very good basketball players. And they're sitting there thinking, hell, we may be on the bench until we're seniors. And I recruited them hard and I got them to wrestle, and we had some really, really good years.
Did the basketball team suck?
Basketball team was pretty good because I'll tell you what, that bunch of kids that was in front of them, we had about 3 years for a small school. We had 3 years where we had good boys basketball, good girls basketball, and good wrestling. I mean, it was fun. It was, Tuesday, Thursday, Fridays, and Saturdays. That was the place to be, was in the gym, watching something. So, yeah.
Well, speaking of basketball, there's another Hoiberg coming to Lincoln. Sam has accepted a walk-on offer, and this happened a day or two, I think, after Jack entered the transfer portal at Michigan State. So are we going to get 3 Hoibergs on the sideline? We'll start with you, John.
Sure.
Okay, excellent. Todd, your crystal ball projection is?
4 Hoibergs.
Is there already one on?
Counting.
No, you've got Sam's twin brother, Charlie.
What the hell? How many Hoibergs are there?
Well, there's at least 3 boys that I know of. I think there's another one. Jack is at Michigan State, and he's in the portal. Sam's going to walk on, and then Sam has a twin brother named Charlie. That it's not clear. It's not clear if he's going to even play basketball, from what I'm told. I don't know. I'm not a huge basketball fan. I watch it from time to time. Sometimes, depending on the year, I get excited about March Madness. But I am a Fred Hoiberg fan, and I've been a huge Fred Hoiberg fan since the kid was in high school. He was as big of a high school figure in the state of Iowa as, well, he's the biggest one, in my lifetime. And, I had opportunity to see him play 2 different sports, when he was in high school and following his career. So I'm a huge Fred Hoiberg fan. So I think it's kind of a neat story. I can't imagine anything more difficult, though, than coaching your sons at the Division I level.
Well, it worked for McDermott.
True. True.
Yeah, Fred Hoiberg's coached in the NBA, and you think coaching your sons is difficult. I can't imagine coaching the NBA egos that exist out there, and even having any idea how to get them all to kind of like coalesce as a team.
Yeah. No, I think that's true.
Yeah.
So Jack, Sam, Charlie, and Paige are the Hoiberg children. And Todd, I want to comment on something you said. You said you remember, watching the kid even in high school. I'm like, you know how old you have to be able to successfully refer to a 48-year-old man as a kid?
Wow.
10 years older than him.
The shots never, the
11.
shots never end there. They say the guy just,
You know,
okay.
I want to just share one real quick. Here's a real quick Fred Hoiberg story. I'll be brief.
No. I want to hear a good Fred Hoiberg story.
Well, when Fred Hoiberg coached at Iowa State, most of the head coaches, many of the coaches, and the athletic director at that time, Jamie Pollard, but a lot of the people that coached and were in the athletic department, they lived up in a housing area up in Gilbert, Iowa, which is north of Ames a little bit. In fact, a lot of them thought they were in the Ames school district, but in reality, they were in the Gilbert school district. And so I remember that one year when my daughter qualified for the state track meet, she was a half miler, 800 runner. And she made it to the state track meet. And in Iowa, they run the state track meet at the Drake Stadium on the Blue Oval. One of the bigger, track meets of the year is the Drake Relays. I mean, it's huge. So you got this great big stadium. And anyway, my daughter was competing running the half and the 4x8. And my wife and I opted to sit on this corner, the second corner of the track, second curve, and up a little bit. And it just happened.
Turn 2 NASCAR parlance.
There you go. And turn 2, you got it. And it just happened that the Gilbert fans were just a little bit off to our right and just kind of down maybe 3 or 4 rows of bleachers. And we were sitting with some friends who had come to watch my daughter run that we'd known from a previous job that I had. Anyway, just kind of as you're wandering and looking around, the Hoibergs were there. Jamie Pollard, the AD, he was there. Jim Gibbons, who was a former wrestling coach at Iowa State, and he does a lot of the wrestling broadcasting for the Big Ten Network, he was there. Kevin Jackson, who was the current wrestling coach at Iowa State, he was there. And so they were easily recognizable because I pay attention. They all had kids that were running in the state track meet. And they were all there, as parents, not coaches. And, what really struck me is that their kids were all very competitive. Obviously, they were state qualifiers, good athletes and that kind of stuff. But while you would watch other groups, other parents, other teens, fans and stuff, just going totally nuts and bonkers when their kids are out there running, some of them cheering real loud and losing it and that kind of stuff. These people all just kind of sat back and just watched. And I thought about that a little bit. And I thought, these people coach at a level that none of us have ever experienced. And at least they have some perspective on their own kids and their own kids as competitors. And maybe they don't feel a need to kind of put some of those other kinds of pressures on those kids because they've seen what it can do the way that other people put kind of pressures and stresses on their kids. So maybe that's, maybe I'll fall of crap. But Fred Hoiberg, when his kids was out there running, he just sat there on the bleachers with his ankles crossed, just as if he was, watching anybody else's kid compete. I thought it was just really interesting.
It's a good moment there, Todd. Thank you for sharing.
And then they all went home and broke their toilets. Football.
Spring practice is almost upon us, I think.
It is.
Hot dog.
Yeah.
And the spring game. Okay, John, why don't you take it away there, buddy? You look like you're about to blow a gasket.
Spring game's May 1st. To not be denied this time, motherfuckers. Nebraska needs its gathering.
And with the help of the athletic department and the state governing body, They're saying that up to 75% capacity for the spring game, or 50% now and 75% in the fall, or what's the latest? What's the latest link in there, boys?
What was the
said
latest?
50%, but they might be able to move it up to 75.
It was one of the national writers made the point of saying that Nebraska spring game may be the largest post-COVID, gathering or sports crowd to date. So I wouldn't put it past us. Sounds like something we would do.
I'm for it. Fuck this fucking pandemic, fucking virus shit.
I think
let's get it going.
John, you've been beating that drum for 12 months now.
Well, good God, it's been depressing. All I do is stay home and work all the fucking time. Don't talk to anybody. Go to U.S. Bank Stadium. I have a whole football stadium to myself, basically. It's bizarre, and it's not right, and it's depriving of us human emotions, and like me screaming right in some guy's face. That's what needs to happen.
What are you looking for this spring, John, from the football team?
What am I looking for this spring for the football team? Wow, I haven't thought about it. It's still only 6 days away for spring practice. What am I looking for? We have now one returning quarterback. I mean, we have some other guys that are on the roster, but we have one returning quarterback that has production. So what we're all going to be watching is who in the hell is Logan Smothers and Henrik Hargeberger, and who are these other guys on the roster? And are they really going to actually, what?
You say Hargeberger?
Well, the whole Matt Masker thing on our website where everybody butchers his name. So now we got a Henrik Herding. That guy is going to get his name butchered forever. Anyway, quarterbacks, I think, everybody, that's the obvious position. And then there's wide receiver, and then there's running back, because what we have, and I think I'll do a separate YouTube video on this actually, what we have is a team that doesn't have a whole lot of returning production. Except for one guy, and everybody doesn't like him. They like him as a guy, but they're like, oh God, do we have to go through another year of Adrian? And is he going to be the lonely guy? And when he does that short arm, throw the ball off into the stands like a Joe Bosterman pass, are we all who's going to come into the game?
He is the most, he's beloved when he's the backup.
I love the kid. I do. He carries himself well. He, I
think he's mature beyond his years,
Yeah, he's mature. He speaks well. He seems like a leader. He just gets on the field and does not very well sometimes, and that's putting it nicely,
Somewhat erratic.
So what are we going to look for? I think we're going to look at. It's kind of weird, but we're going to look at who's new, and the biggest key to that is, Dedrick Mills is gone. He's off to the draft, right? Wan'Dale Robinson, gone. Luke McCaffrey, gone. Who's our returning producers?
We got a bunch of, not a bunch, but we have returning wide receivers. We just need to get a guy to get him the ball consistently. Cade Warner's gone. You didn't even mention him.
Name one wide receiver.
That's coming back?
Yeah.
Isaiah Betts.
Xavier Betts.
Okay, I had half of him right.
Oh my God! See that?
Austin
Name
Allen.
another one. Name another wide receiver.
Oh,
Omar Manning.
Omar Manning.
Okay, he didn't play hardly at all last year. I mean, you can name names, but name a guy. The guy. Who's the guy?
John Johnston.
There you go. I mean, you've already spoken volumes by not saying anything. Name a tight end that's returning.
I just said it. Didn't I say Austin Allen?
Yep, he is one.
Vokalek.
Did decently. Stoll is gone. Stoll's gone off the NFL.
Well, he's
Name a running back. Come on.
Ronald Tompkins.
There's one. Yep. How many yards he get? Yeah.
4.
Okay. Ramir Johnson showed a lot of. He showed some bursts with speed. We don't know shit about this. We don't know shit about this guy coming in from USC, and we hope to God that he can be Dedrick Mills II or anything that can produce yardage. So I think when you look at the spring practice, you're going to be looking for who in the hell is going to take the Scott Frost offense and set it on fire, because it's just smoldering. You can tell it's smoldering. Okay, maybe I'm the most optimistic motherfucker on the planet. We all know that. And I'm eternally disappointed by everything, but it's ready to, it wants to blow up, but it's got to have the fuel, and who's going to provide the fuel? That's what you're going to watch for the spring game.
The kid coming in from USC, you mentioned you hope he's Dedrick Mills 2.0. And this is no disrespect to Dedrick, who I loved. And, I was sad to see go because I thought that there was a lot of untapped potential there. By the way, we need to clarify for the viewers at home, that's a non-alcoholic ginger beer that John is so delicately in sipping. Did you do pinkies out? I couldn't tell. But the kid from USC, I want him to be more Divino Zigbo like, because I want the play callers to actually call his number more often, and I think that's Dedrick Mills. We talked about it an insane amount during the season, but his biggest hindrance wasn't any of his doing; it was the fact that he didn't get as many opportunities as he should have.
Right.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that.
So
start the games with a sideways pass again this fucking year. Let's do that, huh?
If we do that, honestly, if there's one game where we have a misstep like we had against in Illinois in that situation where we first of all we should never throw that swing gate pass, period, let alone first game or first play of the game deep in our own territory. But as much as it might pay me to do so out of respect for the players who have to put up with that horrible play call, I might turn the game off in my protest to Scott Frost.
What are you going to watch? What are you looking forward to this spring, Todd?
I haven't given it a whole lot of thought.
What the hell? What have you been thinking about? Socialism? Probably.
I've been spending a little time thinking about socialism,
of course,
infrastructure and those types of things. Yeah, I don't know how to put it in words, but I hope that what I hear this spring is not a lot of Kool-Aid drinking bullshit. It would be nice to hear a little bit of humility. It would be nice if Scott Frost would talk about what he's got and what he sees his team being able to do, his players being able to do, rather than throwing this. I mean, he's going to have to live down. I don't know if he can ever live down some of the comments that he's made since he's been the head coach. The defenses are going to have to adjust for us, that kind of thing. Show some humility and let's prepare, the team to play a little bit more physical kind of game when the fall rolls around, and don't put any extra sugar in the Kool-Aid. I'm tired of it.
Do you think? And I'm glad you brought that particular line, but that's certainly not. That's the one that sticks out, I think, in most fans' minds. It's definitely the one that fans of other teams throw back in our face most often. But do you think that he really believed that, or do you think that he was playing to his base?
I think he really believed that.
Okay.
I still believe it. I honestly do. I think that when he gets the right pieces in place and he gets an offense, I said this since he started. We're going to score 40 points a game. We're missing one fucking guy to execute this offense. That's it. You got to find the guy, and he's got to execute it. And then it's going to be whoa, 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 zoom, zoom,
guy to make it work. He doesn't have the personnel that they had at Oregon State when that team was running that offense, you know, clicking on all cylinders.
Right. Oregon, not Oregon State. That's a different team.
Oregon. Quack, quack, quack. Oregon.
Wow.
Thank you.
Up until now, maybe we'll see this fall.
Maybe we will.
He didn't have the team that he had at UCF either.
No. And he's gonna, you know, but he has to adjust a little bit to the physical play in the Big Ten.
He does.
And that's one of the reasons he probably went and got that big kid, that big running back from USC, you know. And I still have a belief in Scott Frost as a coach. I like you guys, those swing passes, just absolutely, you know, playing a horizontal game rather than a vertical game. I've never understood that. I've never understood it at any level.
It's because his quarterback is terrified to throw the ball down the fucking field.
Well, you might have.
That's a large part of that. The guy does not have. He goes into games, and if bad things happen, they snowball on them, and they have to get over that.
I hope that Logan Smothers can step up and at least put some kind of pressure on, you know, the situation, so that Adrian Martinez can raise his level of play too. Otherwise, if it doesn't look, I mean, at the end of the spring, and you know, none of us are Division I football coaches, but I would hope that when those guys are looking at things at the end of the spring, if Logan Smothers isn't at the place where he can step out on the field and lead this team to wins, then I hope there's somebody in the portal that they can get that can come in and be the starting quarterback over Adrian Martinez. Because, and I know that might not make a lot of sense, but I don't know that Adrian Martinez is going to be able to play 12 football games over the course of a season, you know, at anywhere close to 100% of his capacity. I just don't see that happening.
Is Scott Frost's ceiling tied to like he hitched his wagon to Adrian Martinez? You know, I mean, we'd hoped, we'll get, you know, new coach, we'll get you know, an actual quarterback competition. We've wanted true quarterback competitions for damn near 20 years. But is his reluctance or hesitation to move away from, and I know, you know, he did it for a game and a half, whatever, until Luke started shitting the bed last year. But it's that reluctance to move away from Adrian and just make a firm decision. You know what? He's not our guy. Is that going to be, if Adrian struggles and no such move is made, whether it's Logan Smothers, hey, got to get the young kids some reps, you know, whatever. Is that the death knell?
Was that the death knell of Scott Frost?
Yeah.
Let's just say that he needs to get to a bowl game this year, at a minimum. The problem isn't, I think, that he'd be fired. I think the problem is that he'd lose everybody. You know what I mean? And the problem, really, the problem nowadays, I mean, is that everybody has this. Number one, you have social media everywhere. Number two, you have a 24-hour news cycle. Look what happened when Nebraska did not even respond to the Oklahoma shit for 5 hours, and people took this as some kind of referendum as a terrible fucking program because they didn't respond to something on Twitter for 5 fucking hours. 5 hours. And oh my God, Nebraska's the biggest pussies on the planet for 5 fucking hours. 5 hours. Can I say that anymore? But It's not the fact that Tom Osborne. Oh my God. Let's go back to Tom Osborne. If Tom Osborne was doing the same shit right now and he had the seasons he had in the late 80s, remember that? Tom Osborne, you got to eat his cereal on a plate because if it's in a bowl, he'd lose it. This is crap that we all went through up until about 1991, 1992, and then, 93, 94, and then all of a sudden an explosion happened. Tom Osborne wouldn't have made it through those years now because everybody would have done what they did to Bo Pelini, except that Bo Pelini didn't have some kind of just, Bo Pelini had an explosive personality and got worn out by Nebraska fans, as well as he didn't really put a lot of effort into recruiting. I mean, he would have failed sooner or later. They should have let him fail rather than firing him after a 9-3 season. But we've all seen what sort of a dipshit Sean Eichhorst was when it comes to hiring people and managing an athletic department. Anyway, I think Scott Frost is going to be a fine coach. I think when it comes to Adrian Martinez, the problem that Scott Frost has is twofold. Number one, he's a decent guy. He's not a motherfucker. If he was a motherfucker, he'd cut him loose in a heartbeat. Number two, he's been a college quarterback himself, and he had a coach that stood behind him to the point that he won a national title. And he knows that if you're going to get the best out of somebody, what you cannot do to them is abandon them.
Sure.
Because you didn't like how they played, or they're, oh my God, I've tied my boat to this kid and it's going over a cliff instead of going down the river like I want. And I think, put it this way. Would Steve Spurrier do that?
No.
Steve Spurrier would have had the kid probably stabbed in a back alley in Florida somewhere. Well, I don't want him as a quarterback. He didn't give a shit about any of these quarterbacks. I like Steve Spurrier. I had a lot of respect for him and he was fun, but I don't, he's not the same guy that Scott Frost or Tom Osborne are.
Well, I tell you what, I think one of the things that has handcuffed that decision a little bit is he hasn't had I think the difference between Adrian Martinez and whoever the second guy in line was, there was a bigger gap there than what most of the fan base could see for themselves, if that makes any sense. Luke McCaffrey, I think the way that he was used at times was where you were going to get the most bang for your buck when you brought that kid in off the bench and threw a different look at the defense. And if things are going well, you stay with him for a while. But it was, and I understand that McCaffrey, the one game that he started, he had a pretty good day. I get that.
Day, right?
Yeah. But the reality is that the more he was on the field, the more it showed that he wasn't ready to be in that role. And I think part of the issue is, and people can talk about his mechanics. The kid was crazy good as an athlete. Just an incredible athlete. But he had one high school season of being a quarterback, one, before he came in, and he just hasn't had the reps and the exposure. So he's that guy, that I think, he's the changeup guy. He still has aspirations of being a quarterback, and so he's at Louisville now. And now Logan Smothers is going to be the next one put in that position. And, hopefully Logan Smothers, has the capacity to lead the Nebraska team to victories, because he's going to, in my opinion, the likelihood that he's going to be out there under center is pretty high. So I hope that he can get the job done.
Well, Minnesota used, their starting quarterback it's not Tyler Johnson. He's playing for the Bucks. Come on. Tanner Morgan. Yeah,
Tanner Morgan,
starting quarterback. He was very accurate with the deep ball. He was a good quarterback, but they also had that second guy. I think it was Seth Green, the big guy. He was real tall, and he would come in and run short yardage and stuff like that. That's Harold Harburg this next season. That's what that guy's going to do. He's going to be our changeup. He's going to be the guy that comes in and they go, oh God, he's going to run an option. Oh my God, he's going to run the wildcat. Oh my God, he's going to go. We don't even know what his name is. That's what he's going to do. He's going to be the changeup guy. And that's what we're going to look for in spring. What is Heinrich Hingelbert up to these days? That's what Nebraska wants to know. Where's he going to be on the depth chart?
Heinrich Humperdinck.
I'm looking forward to seeing him play. I'll tell you that right now. If you ask, what am I looking forward to? You know, every year for like, I don't know, a decade, 12 years, we did a poll at Corn Nation that I started many years ago. It was called For What Will We Cheer the Loudest? And every year people would vote on, you know, options I gave them for what we would cheer the loudest on. So, you know, maybe we can cover that on the next podcast, you know, think about the options for that, because I think, you know, the thing, this pandemic has been a fucking suck ball of shit hell. You know what I mean? It's look at all the events that it cost Omaha, where Nebraskans love to come together for their college sports, and people outside of Nebraska make fun of us about how much we love our college sports. I guess they don't love shit because they're a bunch of, I don't know, heartless bastards, probably.
East and West Coast douchebags.
Yeah, there you go. But Nebraska really needs a spring game where it doesn't even matter if people all get to go in the stadium. They can gather in their homes. They can, you know, Joe Biden's going to tell us that the July 4th, you might be able to have a small gathering. Well, fuck that guy. You know, I get that there's a virus out there. It's still killing people and it's still a pain problem. But after a while, you got to just kind of move on. And I think, you know, look at me, for God's sakes. I'm not even the same human being I was before this started.
I'll tell you what, I think they'll fill every seat that they can for the spring game. I don't care what the number is, you know, ultimately, if it's 50% or 75 or whatever, they'll fill every seat that they can. And I got a hunch that downtown Lincoln and the parking lots are going to look like a normal football Saturday in the fall. I think people are just going to come to be in Lincoln because the football team is playing, and it will be the biggest event until the kickoff of the first game of the year. People are tired of being cooped up. And that's one of the reasons, you know, why I thought the best decision the Big Ten has made in a year is allowing fans to go watch spring sports, you know, to an extent, because people
to allow their own local health departments determine their fate.
At this point, I agree.
So I'm not tied to what is going on in fucking Michigan or New Jersey.
You're barely tied to what's going on in Minnesota.
Well, you know, they opened up after the U.S. Bank weekend. That was kind of funny. Not for sporting events, though. They will start opening up for more sporting events here in a little bit.
Now your UK variant has more positive cases than the original, so.
Yeah, and I imagine that, you know, we're going to, at some point, we're going to just say, okay, this is going to go on forever. Let's just, what's that line from The Incredibles?
Get busy living or get busy dying.
When the mom looks at her son and he says, "You're special," and everybody's special, and he looks up and he says, "That's just another way of saying nobody is."
Yeah.
Well, you know what? When there's a pandemic and it keeps going on and on and on for years, it's not really a fucking pandemic anymore, is it? It's just normal.
Yeah.
And if you can't figure out where the line is between pandemic and fucking normal, or normal that you can say on the radio, which isn't fucking, then that's going to be a real problem for everybody going forward when we just say, fuck it, let's go out and have sex in the street, giant big orgies at the Nebraska Spring Game. That's what I'm looking forward to. Well, maybe not the orgy part, but, well, anyhow, I'll have a camera. I don't know. You should have more of this ginger beer.
Well, all right. Well,
do you have to edit any of that out? Did I say anything I would get canceled for?
have we ever? Did we have enough listeners that people are gonna, complain?
I get emails from people sometimes that I am
Really?
surprised. Yes, that I am surprised by. Wow, God, people actually do listen to this.
Gotta forward some of those on to me, John. I'm curious.
I did a YouTube video on the name, image, likeness thing, and I got a very nice email from somebody who said that she had contacted the Nebraska and Creighton athletic departments. And both of them said that legally they could start paying players because of Nebraska's law. And that's true. But Nebraska and Creighton won't pay players because they don't want to get hammered by the NCAA. And they're waiting to see what the NCAA does. And I know we're probably past time now, but I want you to think about this. If I was the University of Miami or some school like that isn't Nebraska, because God help us, Nebraska's lily white in their athletic department. You know what I'd do if I was the University of Miami? I'd go ahead and start fucking paying. I'd look at my players and say, hey, you know what? Let's do some name, image, likeness shit. Because right now, the NCAA, Oklahoma State, if I understand right, Oklahoma State penalized themselves postseason, but they went ahead to the March Madness anyway. Because the NCAA never ruled on anything. What's the fucking point of this organization? Other than to be a big bureaucracy that stands in the way of anything. And maybe we should cover that on the next podcast. Why the NCAA needs to fucking fire Mark Emmert. God, it's getting late at night and I'm all fired up. Why that guy needs to go and the NCAA they need different leadership. They need to do something different. I shouldn't have brought this up at the end of this, should I?
That would be fun to tackle.
Speaking of tackling,
That's
our end of the show. That'll do it. John's getting a little tipsy on the ginger beer there and getting off.
I got nothing else.
He's never mind. He's all out. He's spent.
No, I got nothing else besides ginger beer. I don't even do drugs, for God's sake.
That's good. My 1-month-old agrees. Sitting behind me, he's laughing. So that'll do it for this episode of the 5 Heart Podcast. We hope that you appreciate or enjoy the show. I don't care if you appreciate it or not. But send us a comment on
Is
YouTube.
there a phone number they're supposed to call that we keep forgetting to bring up?
There is. Somewhere is even that printout that says for a good time call. No, that's not what it says. It is 402-327-1830. They should call, leave a voicemail, and then hear it next week on the show. So for Todd, the God Wolverton.
Wow.
Didn't know quite how he'd respond to that, but I'll take it. John Dam Johnston. I'm Greg Mahochko. This is the 5 Heart Podcast, and that's it. John,
go Big Red.
Wait, I didn't get to my thing yet.
Oh,
I'm out of practice, but you got to let me try.
Okay.
We remind you this week and every week, the 5 Heart is all the heart you need. John?
Go Big Red. Chocolate rain.